One person who is not a bright spot, the opposite of a bright spot, one might say, Kelly Hinkle. One Ronald Attard.
Enough already.
It was rough. And I say this as someone who has long been...
I know, you've been a Ronnie Attard guy.
A Ronnie Attard guy. I wanted to see him get a real shot at this camp. Going through some of the details, he's no longer waiver exempt, so there is the risk where if you send him through waivers, you might lose him after this performance. I don't know if any NHL team would have any interest in him if they've watched any tape of this game. But he is a big right-handed shooting defenseman with some NHL experience who was taken in the third round, who can skate decently well. Not great, but he's not a liability from a skating standpoint. He's got a big shot. There are some tools there where you think maybe a team might claim him if he hits waivers. So I went into this camp thinking, I wonder how much of a shot they're going to give him. From the start of camp, he was kind of buried, but he got a look in this preseason game. And you're like, all right, this is the opportunity for Ronnie Attard to change the narrative, to catch the attention of the coaches, to make it clear that he should be playing through the end of camp and having a real look at potentially being the number 8 in the starting roster.
Right.
Well, he caught their attention, but not in a good way. In fact, in probably the worst way possible. This was I've seen a lot of guys have bad preseason games. This was like top tier bad preseason game by a guy trying to make the team.
A real doozy. That one turnover was right in front of the Montreal net, where it's just him and the other guy, and all he has to do is skate the puck out of the zone, or shoot the puck out of the zone,
or just kick it to the boards. Do something,
whatever, anything but hand it to the other player, who then just goes right up and scores a goal. It was very ugly. And it is a bummer because Ronnie Attard is one of those guys. He makes me think of like Phil Myers. Like, all of the physical tools are there. Yeah. Everything is there.
He has the physical tools, maybe not as... Phil Myers was a freak. He could skate incredibly well. He was bigger. He was stronger than everyone. But I do agree that Attard has enough physical tools to be an NHL defenseman.
Yeah,
100%.
And he's just not ever putting them all together at once. And it's getting to the point where it's like there's so many guys in this defensive system that I don't know what you do with him at this point. Like, I mean, I guess he can be a Phantom forever. That's fine. Go ahead. Knock yourself out. Maybe he gets it together down there, and then maybe a couple of guys get hurt and he gets another shot to see if he could do something. All right, that's fine. Whatever. But I don't see a point in continuing to try to make him a thing. Like, I think the ship has sailed. At this point, he's an AHL player, and you put him down there, and if you got to call him up, you got to call him up. I don't think we have to worry about anyone claiming him.
I definitely don't think they have to worry about it. At least not now.
Especially this time of year. Like, when everyone's going up and down through waivers, like all of this happening, I feel like every organization probably has a big right-handed shooting defenseman that they're all waiting to try to see if there'll be a thing, because everyone's obsessed with big right-handed defensemen. So I don't really think we have to worry about that part. I just don't think you waste a roster spot on a guy that's showing you nothing at this point.
Yeah, and so I don't
really
think they're going to.
No, it would be crazy if they did. Even as the 7, like, there's just no point.
No. Not a chance. And I think, too, like, the reason why I came into this camp intrigued by Attard was because I looked at what they did last year with Igor Zamol, where he was kind of in the same boat. He'd been a prospect with the organization for a while, hadn't kicked the door down, and then suddenly was no longer waiver exempt.
Right.
And they very clearly went into camp, basically, they didn't say it out loud, but he did not have an incredible camp. He was fine.
Yeah.
He had a fine enough camp. And that was enough because they wanted to see what they had in this kid. That they were high enough on his potential that they wanted to give him a year. And they did not want to risk losing him on waivers. So I thought, all right, Attard's kind of in the same boat.
Logically,
maybe they're going to approach Attard at this camp the same way. Then at the start of camp, when he was paired with, I forget who he was.
Carter Sotheran?
He was paired with Carter Sotheran. He was paired with, like, guys who have no chance of making the team. No chance of making the team. And that tells you, okay, he's not in their mix. Because John Tortorella and Danny Briere can say all they want that, the lines and pairings the first day of camp don't matter. They don't matter in the sense that they're not necessarily going to be the lines and pairs in game 1. But they matter in that they show where these guys stand in the hierarchy at the start of camp. Yeah. And Ronnie Attard was very clear from day 1, was not high. And I was a little bit like, well, that kind of sucks. I think higher of Ronnie Attard personally than like Adam Ginning and guys who were in better spots to start camp. And I was thinking, I don't know if I agree with this. Well, if what they've been seeing from him is what we just watched on Monday night, I understand why they're low on him, because that version of Ronnie Attard does not look anywhere near like an NHL player. And I like the skill set still, but I agree with you that they're in a position now where he's not making the team. If somebody claims him, Godspeed, have fun with Ronnie Attard. If nobody claims him, he's down in the AHL. This is the last year of his contract, and maybe he plays out the contract and then signs somewhere else. Yeah. Maybe that's where this goes.
It seems like the logical conclusion to the Ronnie Attard story. And honestly, I would be fine with it, because it just seems very unlikely to me that at some point he's just going to learn how to play hockey. It just doesn't.
I will say I've seen much better from him. I don't think he's actually this bad. I think this was a really bad game because he has skills. He played games in the NHL last year, and he didn't look bad in most of those games. Yeah. He played games when he got signed out of college at the end of that season. He's played NHL games, and his numbers in the NHL, I'm going to pull them up for you. 29 NHL games played, 2 goals, 6 points. Underlying metrics, 53.92 expected goal share, 5-on-5. These are pretty good. Now, he was obviously being used in a sheltered third pair role in those games, but did pretty well in those minutes. So I came into the season thinking there might be something there. But regardless of whether there's something there or not, and this is really important to understanding, I think, Tortorella's view of training camp, but also just the organization's view of training camp, while it matters to a degree, where you were drafted, what you've done in the NHL before, if you haven't fully established yourself, but you've played some games, what you did in the AHL. In the end, you have to show up and play well in camp. And if you don't, it's kind of like, sorry, dude, we gave you a shot. It was a fair competition. Yes, Attard started out camp behind the 8 ball, but he could have gotten himself out from under it if he would have went out there last night and in his 15 minutes of play looked real good. Instead, he looked awful, and now he's just confirmed all of the organization's biases about him and what he is and what he isn't. Yeah. And now I assume he's out of the mix.
It's a bummer, but them's the breaks.
Thems are the breaks.
We all silly like the mayor.